Alrighty, guys, thank you for coming back for another edition of News for People Who Hate the News. And boy, is this week chock full of news. Starting off, we're going to talk about Israel and what they've gotten up to recently. They have been under some hot water this past week. Earlier in the week, Israeli military officials claimed they took out a top Iranian military official, and to no surprise, Iran says that they are going to strike back. They have yet to make good on that promise at the time of this recording. However, it is Saturday at about 12:30 p.m. my time. Anything could happen between now and, tomorrow at the same time. Seems like Israel's military needs some more training with marksmanship because they apparently took out 3 vehicles that were clearly marked as humanitarian aid from an organization known as the World Central Kitchen. I believe these people were there to deliver food and aid to people in Gaza who were just caught up in the whole war between Hamas and Israel. But Israel took out 3 vehicles that contain aid, killing several people from America and Australia. Now, Israel has kind of just, mostly said, oops, sorry. And they also claimed that they were targeting a member of Hamas who was allegedly among those in the vehicles. I'm going to say this is probably not true, considering how Israel has gone about their business with dealing with Hamas since October of last year. And they're catching a lot of criticism for that, and likely so. They've done some pretty bad things in this war against Hamas. Not saying that Hamas is innocent either, because they use innocent women and children and hospitals and schools as their headquarters and stuff, but man, this is bad, and this could get us closer to a tipping point for actual World War III. One thing we can't really fight is Mother Nature, because Taiwan was hit by a massive earthquake, which killed several people, wounded, countless more, and at this point, I have not checked what the actual death tolls were, but my thoughts and prayers are out for anybody who is suffering directly from this right now. On top of this, though, I'm more concerned for global markets, since Taiwan is like the global leader in computer chip manufacturing. For those who remember, during COVID, the used car market was bonkers, with used cars being almost as expensive, if not more expensive in some cases, than brand new cars. I think it was Ford who had just lots and lots of pickup trucks, just acres of pickup trucks just sitting there because they didn't have computer chips to put in them to get them running, which stalled the auto manufacturing in America. So I'm afraid that something like this might happen again because of this earthquake. I really hope and pray it doesn't, and I hope that our political officials, elected representatives, I refuse to call them leaders, get their head out of their ass and get some good legislation forward to get, computer chip manufacturing brought to the United States and diversify away from just Taiwan. However, even though Biden signed that CHIPS Act a couple years ago, it hasn't really helped because there's a bunch of DEI red tape bundled up in that is keeping companies from building computer chip manufacturing plants. these stipulations state that so many chips have to come from like minority-owned businesses and woman-owned businesses and veteran-owned businesses and blah 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 blah. Instead of just saying, hey, whoever can make the chips can get some federal grants or tax cuts or whatever to get this ball rolling. So it's pretty dumb, duh. But it's not just making it to where these plants don't come to America or there's so much red tape involved. It's actually forcing tech companies to build these manufacturing plants in other parts of the globe, such as South Korea, Poland, and Israel, where wars are currently going on, such as in Israel, or could pop off at a moment's notice, like South Korea, because the Korean War never really officially ended, or in Poland, should, and I don't think this ever would happen, but should Vladimir Putin say, oh, okay, we got Ukraine now, we're going to go into Poland. Don't think that's going to happen, because Putin has said repeatedly he doesn't want that to happen. But it wouldn't surprise me if the United States and or NATO spark some sort of false flag attack that would force a conflict between Europe and Russia, and then Poland would be right there in the middle of it. Because they always are. Just go study history. Poland is always just in the middle of all of it. So, also, thoughts and prayers out to Poland, because y'all have gone through it over the course of the world's history. Speaking of earthquakes, though, another earthquake hit New Jersey just yesterday, I believe. What is today? April 6th. I think it was yesterday, April 5th. I don't think it was a very severe earthquake like the one in Taiwan. But what was interesting was that the epicenter of the earthquake was almost exactly centered on Donald Trump's golf resort there in New Jersey. I don't know if that's Mother Nature or God or, whoever trying to send a message, but maybe? I don't know. I kind of think back to the Jesus statue in Monroe, Ohio getting struck by lightning and burning to the ground, and then a month or two later, the head pastor there dies of a heart attack. Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. But from my understanding, that guy was pretty shady in and of itself, so who knows? Maybe it's a sign that, hey, Trump needs to get some stuff in order on his side or something. I don't know. At this point, I'm just rambling. But speaking of Trump, he posted his bond in the New York case, which is awesome, even though that case should never have gone forward to begin with, because it's all just political persecution. But those who would try to persecute Trump are also facing charges as well. We've seen Fani Willis having her own problems in court, and her boyfriend, Nathan Wade, is also possibly facing charges of contempt of court in his divorce hearings. This stuff is getting better by the day. This is almost playing out like a soap opera. It's hilarious. Now, Trump shouldn't be in court for most of this stuff, I believe. So anybody who has come against him that's also facing their own legal problems, you kind of got what you paid for, You reap what you sow. Some not so fun cases coming forward. Tuberculosis and bird flu have been reported in the United States, coming from migrant shelters in Chicago, and apparently bird flu from cattle in Texas and Southwest United States. This is interesting to me. It's kind of scary that tuberculosis is making a comeback, because the tuberculosis, to my knowledge, is pretty fatal. I never had it, don't ever want it, but I think of, and I know this is goofy of me, but I think of Val Kilmer's character Doc Holliday in the movie Tombstone, in which he knocked out of the park, by the way. But he was dying the whole movie. Like, he was dying the whole movie from tuberculosis, which is what happened to Doc Holliday. So the fact that we're just having people come into this country from God knows where, who are sick with whatever diseases, to just then roam the streets of America is pretty frightening to me. And I'm not the only one, because these cases of bird flu and stuff have other people worried that state governments are going to try to do more lockdowns this year than they did in 2020 during COVID, which seems a little too coincidental to me, that it's also a presidential election year and we've got all these cases of illness popping up. I don't think it's so much of a coincidence, actually. Doesn't seem that way to me. But, you know, like the computer chips thing that I just talked about, we don't learn lessons very easily, because apparently the USDA is kind of having some backdoor workings with China research labs on gain-of-function research for bird flu. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, this stuff, it's so coincidental at this point that it seems deliberate. Like, why have we not learned from this? And if I remember correctly, it was Barack Obama who completely banned all gain-of-function research for its potential harmful side effects, I guess. And then it was Trump that undid that, actually. So if we're going to criticize anybody here, criticize Trump for that one, because he kind of screwed the pooch on that one. But just stay vigilant this year. Take care of yourself. Eat healthy and take your vitamins and all that, and just be as healthy as you can. Speaking of threats to the American governing system, RFK Jr. said during an interview that he believes Joe Biden is more of a threat to democracy than Donald Trump. Now, to clarify, in that interview, he was kind of throwing both of them under the bus, which I think is funny, but he basically cited every single federal agency that is going after Trump or Trump supporters. You know, all the cases that Donald Trump is wrapped up with, and people who were locked up from the January 6th protest, that have been just hunted down by federal level agencies for just simply walking into a building for a few minutes. Now, there's people there that, like I've said before, who were, you know, smashing things and breaking things and stuff. And yeah, those people who vandalized property should face charges for that. But people who were waved in by the police, it's absurd to charge them with anything like that. It's just insane. Like, there's a story that just came out. A 71-year-old woman from Colorado who's been nicknamed on the internet the J6 Grandma is potentially facing a year in prison and outrageous fines for simply walking into the Capitol building and praying. Let me repeat that. She walked into the building calmly, peacefully, prayed, and walked out. And she's facing a year in jail and like hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. But it's not political persecution at all. Okay. She does have a GoFundMe page up if anybody wants to donate to that to help with her legal fees. And I hope that she gets the amount of money she needs and more to fight back on this, because this is ridiculous. What's also ridiculous is a judge in Texas has ordered that the criminal aliens who fought back against National Guard troops in El Paso, Texas, should be let out of jail. If it's not abundantly clear to you yet that we have a two-tier justice system, then you need to go get your eyes checked. Because let me say that again. A Texas judge has ordered that people who fought against our military members to come into the country illegally should be let out of jail. But people who were at the J6 protest, who simply walked into a building, have been in jail for several years now with no end in sight. Again, this is all too coincidental to be a coincidence. It is deliberate at this point. These elites hate you and want to dominate you. To keep that in mind. I don't know if you follow a page on Twitter called End Wokeness. I do. But they tweeted out something that was not entirely true this past week in regards to voter registration. The tweet said that basically there was an alarming amount of voter registrations happening in several key states with people who had no photo ID. Turns out this was not entirely true. What those numbers reflected were how many times social security numbers were verified to actual voters and not to someone who was trying to use a false number or maybe typed it in wrong or something, or to check voter rolls to make sure that all the people that were registered voters were living voters and not Democrat voters. But so the numbers were not entirely true. And Steven Crowder and his team actually went into depth of this this past week. So if you go back, I think it was Wednesday of this past week, you can watch that episode and get some more information about that. I'm just trying to distill down a lot of the information that was brought out that wasn't entirely true. However, what is true is that Mayor Garnett L. Johnson and the Richmond County, Georgia County Sheriff are still maintaining the protection of illegal immigrants, criminal aliens, despite Laken Riley being murdered under their jurisdiction. If you don't remember, Laken Riley was a young college student at Augusta University in Georgia, Richmond County, Georgia, who was brutally murdered by a criminal alien who was here illegally, who had been deported several times before for violent crimes. And even after all the backlash that came from that, these two dirtbags are still maintaining the protection of illegal immigrants. So if you're watching this from that county in Georgia, or you know someone who is in that county in Georgia or lives in Augusta, Georgia, you need to show them this video. That way the people that they vote for can be exposed and get voted out. And honestly, they should be in prison for this because they're breaking federal law by not complying with ICE, immigration laws. And at the very least, this is just absolutely immoral. That an American citizen is murdered by someone who was here illegally for the fifth or sixth time, came here illegally for the fifth or sixth time, and they're just like, nah, we're going to let him stay. Like, no, this is absolutely wrong. You know, and I always like to boil this down to the smallest analogy possible. If you had a roommate who was always coming home drunk or something and being belligerent and breaking stuff or whatever, you wouldn't tolerate that stuff for long, and you'd kick him out real quick. Now, it might be a bit of a fight, for legal reasons or whatever, but someone like that you can't live with. They got to go, or you got to go, and they can just live in their own squalor. So the same principle applies here. When you're bringing in people who are deliberately breaking the law, they cannot remain here. And this mayor and this county sheriff need to be booted out ASAP. So to get on with some cultural stuff, kind of lighten the mood a little bit, I suppose. Everyone remembers Shakira, and she was facing some criticism this week as well over her comments about the Barbie movie. Now, before I say anything else, I have not seen the Barbie movie. I don't really intend to. I'm not the target audience for that movie. I'm a 27-year-old white male. Barbie movie ain't for me. So, gonna put that out there now. However, she's the mother of 2 boys, and she says that the Barbie movie was quote unquote emasculating, and caught criticism for this. Um, this isn't really a surprise to me, though, because we see all too often now women who are self avowed feminists continually claim that they don't need men in their life. While that may be true to just simply live, you live your whole life never, marrying a man or anything like that, our society does need men because we need men to do hard jobs like working on oil rigs or serving in police forces or the military. These things are very predominantly male, and male fields of employment, and they rightly so, because they can be very physically demanding, and on average men are able to hold up to those physical standards more than women. Not saying that women can't, it's nature and biology. So, like Shakira said, men and women have equal roles to play in society, but they complement each other. They're not meant to lord over one or the other. And we see this, in predominantly Christian cultures. I think of, the story in the Bible when God created Adam and then created Eve. He took a rib from Adam to make Eve. He took it from Adam's side to be a helper, to live alongside with Adam, not from his foot to lord over her. So this comes as an interest to me because Richard Dawkins, who is an avowed atheist, claims that the Western world needs Christianity to survive. I find this interesting because this is what a lot of people have been saying about the Western world for a long time. And it also strikes me as interesting that he would say this because he has spent much of his life attacking the faith. So I don't know if he's had a bit of a come to Jesus moment, pun intended, but I agree with him and would implore that more people come to the faith. I think, and as I've done a video before, the American church has its problems, but I think that is the best way to go about life. We see people in society today who have no religion or practice no religion, just practice, whether they admit it or not, but they practice some sort of world theism where they want the state. I mean, it's communism. They don't admit it yet, but they're communists. And we see this with this guy from Michigan who had an absolute meltdown on camera about police officers posing for pictures with Donald Trump when he was having a rally in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And if you haven't seen this dude, I mean, you can find him pretty easily. Just type in Michigan man has meltdown over Trump, and I'm sure you'll find it real easy. But he just has this blow up about Trump, being awful and how, law enforcement shouldn't be posing with them because he's committed so many crimes, and, this is just awful and blah, 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 blah. But it just shows that their hypocrisy and their fascist mentality when they won't admit it, because they wanted to defund the police, but then they want to cry about crime rates skyrocketing. But also, they only want police to have guns, but then defund the police. So, you can never win with liberal logic. And this guy is the epitome of that. Seriously, if you haven't seen the video, go watch it. It's kind of funny. And I hope the guy gets away from the computer and Twitter for a little bit and goes outside and touches grass, because he needs it. So Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro have had some beef lately. Candace Owens, I don't know if she was exactly fired from Daily Wire or if she just stepped away or her contract expired or whatever. But they've been having some beef since October of last year, and they've apparently agreed to do a debate about anti-Semitism in today's world. If you don't know, and I don't know how you don't know, but for some reason, if you don't know, Ben Shapiro is very much a Jewish man married to a Jewish woman, and they have children who are Jewish. And so, it makes sense that Ben Shapiro would be more defensive of Israel, but you can defend the right for a country to exist, but also criticize how they're carrying out military operations. However, that's getting kind of in the weeds of stuff. This debate kind of seems like it came about because comedian Andrew Schultz kind of poked fun at them on his podcast Flagrant recently about this whole thing between the two of them. So it'll be interesting to see this debate happen. I'm looking forward to it. I kind of plan on listening to it, and I might give my own little breakdown of that next week or so. So to end on a conspiracy theory, if you will, and I do love me a good conspiracy theory, John Bolton, the oh so glorious mustachioed man that he is, although, I would criticize his wit sometimes, but John Bolton claims that Russia has energy weapons that can melt holes into people's brains. Do I believe this? No. But this is probably just fear-mongering propaganda to push us even closer to a war with Russia, because he has wanted war with whoever for the longest time. What do I think about this? This probably shows that America actually has some sort of directed energy weapon that can do just that, and defense contractors are just itching to try it out somewhere. So, it wouldn't surprise me if in the coming months we see some accounts of something like this happening in the war against Ukraine and Russia against Russian soldiers. So, yeah. All of this anti-Russia propaganda to me seems like leftovers from the Cold War era. And again, I emphasize that these old politicians, old in age, need to get voted out because of this. So, to end on this, speaking of old politicians, a woman by the name of Sage Steele claims that interviews with Biden were scripted out beforehand. And this comes to no surprise to anybody. I mean, the man is barely alive. He clearly has some sort of cognitive dementia, and he's barely holding on. So it doesn't surprise me that these interviews were scripted out to make him look good on camera. Do I think that he's going to be in the presidential race come November? Not really, but, we'll see what happens. Politicians in D.C., especially the president, have access to way better health care than the rest of us, so they may keep him hopped up on some sort of medical cocktail until then. So, man, we are coming up on half an hour of me rambling about the news from this past week. I'm going to get off here and go touch grass myself because I need to cut mine. If you enjoyed this video or learned something new, let me know down in the comments, and like the video and share it with someone who needs to hear the news. So, with that being said, I'm signing off, and I'll see y'all next time.